I'm live. Hello everyone, I'm Nini FC and this is Blue Lines TV, and today I'm bringing you guys a live stream. Sorry for the delay, I was watching the Checkered Trade game. Chelsea youth were playing against Lincoln City. No excuse for why you guys didn't watch it. It was on Sky Sports, it was there. Unfortunately, didn't win the game, lost on penalties, but very respectable effort by the youth players. And it's a shame because I really wanted to go to Wembley because, you know, realistically, that's our best chance of getting silverware this season. So, I mean, hopefully we can see them win the FA Youth Cup again. So that's something to look forward to, I guess. But tonight, I'm joined by two special guests. I'm joined again by Joe Tweedy. And later on tonight, youneshh will be coming onto their live stream as well. He's not here at this moment in time, but he's going to jump through, you know, hopefully in the next 10 minutes, I'm praying. But anyway, yeah, Joe, if you want to introduce yourself.
Yeah, hey Nini, yeah, thanks for having me on as always. Yeah, Joe Tweedy on Twitter. Yeah, writer on Plains of Maria, We Ain't Got a History, and probably on Football London shortly this week. Yeah.
Football London, yeah. I'm looking forward to that.
Yes.
Okay, but yeah, well, when youneshh comes, we were going to talk about obviously his video. He did that 25-minute run that he did. You know, very impressive video, and you know, brought up a lot of interesting discussion points. But yeah, really, the main focus really for this live stream tonight. Actually, before I even say that, I need to let you guys know right now. Tomorrow, I've got a 3-part mini epic coming out later during this week. The first one's going to come out tomorrow. I'm going to be breaking down exactly everything wrong with Conte's spell so far in the season. I'm going to be talking about whether it was the board's fault, his fault. I'm going to be breaking down everything from his tactics to the transfer window to his relationship with the board to his training sessions as well. So you guys are definitely going to enjoy that. It's going to have footage and clips. I've done a lot of research. It took me a long time to do the script, but you guys will definitely enjoy it. But yeah, Joe, since you know, this past few months, everything's getting worse and worse. That's an understatement, I know. I mean, Watford beating us 4-1. They haven't scored. I think Chelsea Youth even said it. The last time they scored 4 goals at home was back in the Championship. Now, Watford, you could say, arguably, have had a much worse season compared to us.
Yep.
They really underperformed. I mean, the amount of players they've got out injured at the same time as well. They just sacked, you know, Silva the second coming. You know, he was pretty overrated in my opinion. And yeah, they bought Delafeu, you know, and he's the type of guy that shouldn't be doing anything against Chelsea. You know, this is why Barca looks like they've finally given up on him. And yeah, he got beat 4-1 by Watford now. Like, what went through your heads when that happened?
I think the most worrying thing is that we've made Janmaat, a right back, look like Messi, and we are playing the actual Messi in about 2 weeks' time. And the same with Delafeu. I mean, the Janmaat goal. I mean, I can't remember. Actually, it might have been similar to when Lukaku scored quite a similar goal when he walks through the Chelsea defence. Very, very similar. But I can't. I mean, Lukaku is a centre forward, but when we've let a player of that ability just. I mean, he beat, 5, 6 players, and had slotted the ball in the net. I mean, it's just absolutely ridiculous. And I think, to be honest, that just sums up probably the past couple of months in that one goal. I mean, after that, it was kind of the floodgates open, and I think we were just pretty much despondent. But, I mean, you know, you work hard. I mean, you rely on an individual piece of absolute brilliance of Eden Hazard to get back in the game. And this is the thing I was saying to quite a few people last night is, you know, you're completely undeservedly drawing the game with 10 minutes to go. You know, you're a defensive-minded manager. Why not chuck on a defender and just try and take the point? I mean, at 10 men, and given how we played, I wouldn't have been too fussed with that. Or, alternatively, try and go for it because Watford were on their heels a bit. You know, take Cahill off, chuck Azpilicueta in at centre-back, chuck Moses at right-back, chuck Hudson-Odoi on, you know, bring him on up front, have him, you know, try and take the game to Watford. And the fact he didn't use that third substitution to either shore it up or attack just felt very strange to me. And I think, yeah, I mean, after the game in particular, the press conference from Conte, you know, it was a very much a man who looked as if he was going to be fired. I mean, it looks like that's not going to be the case now with the things that's come out of the club today. But, you know, a very pointed press conference where he was taking shots at players and obviously people who are running the club. And, you know, this isn't the words of a manager who is necessarily going to get the players.
Yeah.
I mean, it feels to me, Nini, like it's quite obvious now that he's lost that that dressing room from early in the season. But yeah, I mean, last night was about as bad a performance as it gets. And I keep saying this, you know, it's I keep doing these tweets, and I've actually realised that I've done probably 6 in the past couple of weeks. I keep saying this is the worst half of football I've seen Chelsea play, and the first half at Watford was terrible. I mean, the second half was even worse. And you know, I had to kind of retweet my own tweet to say, actually, okay, we've now played worse than that, and it's only like 20 minutes later. So, yeah, I mean, just dreadful. But you know, I mean, the bottom line for me, Nini, I think, is that, you know, Conte, I think, probably is going to be here to the end of the season unless we get absolutely slapped by Barcelona. If that's the case, for me, you know, stop complaining in the press, stop, you know, mentioning all the negative stuff that he's been doing the past couple of months, and just coach the players. You know, that's what he's here to do. If he can't get performances out of them and they don't want to play for him, that's, you know, that's a different question. But you know, I think his negativity is really beginning to grate on me, and I think it's something that's actually filtering through to quite a few Chelsea fans as well. Nini, are you on mute? I didn't get the last bit of that.
That was annoying.
Yeah, I can hear you now.
You can hear me now? Okay, good. Yeah.
I tried to text you.
Oh, cool, cool. So, yeah. The last bit was I said that basically with this terrible form we're on under Conte is you know, have you ever seen in the history of football managers being able to turn everything round and get everything positive and back to normal again? Because I don't think I've ever seen that happen.
No, it's I think at this point in the season, particularly with the comments he's been making over the last maybe 6 to 8 weeks, I mean, you can't tell players that they're not good enough to finish in the top 4. And you know, I mean, he actually said after the game that there's quite a few players in the squad who aren't good enough to play for Chelsea, which, you know, if that may or may not be true, but that's not something I want to be hearing from my manager. And there's a lot of stuff which I think, realistically, if he is that upset about certain things, that he should be talking to the club about, talking to the players. It's not, as a fan, what you want to hear after a game, particularly when you've put in one of the worst performances of the season, probably one of the worst performances over the past maybe 3 to 4 years. No, you've come out, you've said I picked the wrong team, I've done this, I've done that, and then ripped into the players. I can't see him turning it around personally. He may pull something out of the bag against Barcelona, because I think some of the players might have a bit of pride in their own performance in kind of a Champions League game, which might get a bit of that. But I can't really see him turning completely around. But this is the thing, you know, we've lost 2 games back to back. If we wouldn't have lost them, I think we would have been second. So, you know, it's such fine margins, and we need Champions League football. I think that's the bottom line, particularly for the, you know, the financial side of things. People who are moaning about transfer spending at the moment, if we don't get top 4, you know, that's only going to be drastically worse, you know, come the end of the season. And then you are going to look at having to sell players like Eden Hazard and Courtois to generate some transfer funds. But no, I think you're right. It's a very unlikely turnaround. And if he does turn it around, fair enough. And I think the club will give him the opportunity to. I don't think he will have the ability to say that they didn't give me the chance to turn it around. But Whether he will or not, I don't know. I don't think he will, but you know, that's just my perspective.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to happen. So just purely based on the actual realities of football, because if we don't have many examples, or if there isn't much of a history of things happening and turning around, then obviously it just lets you know that it's not going to be happening. I mean, really, the only way this could be turned around is if Conte wakes up one day, maybe, I don't know, maybe God speaks to him in his dream or something, and shows him the light that, you know, you attacking football is the way forward, Antonio, and you know what I mean? That's really the only possibility in terms of how Antonio can change things, because, you know, when I do release this, you know, mini series later this week, you guys, I'm going to be delving a lot into our actual training methods, Conte's preference in terms of what type of training drills he likes and what he likes to use, and why this really affects and shapes the team a lot, because everything starts from the training ground, you know. So again, if we were to get a positive change, it's going to have to come down to Conte really adapting a style. But then managers don't do that, you know. Managers, for example, you know, I don't exactly, again, managers just don't change their style. If you're one type of manager, you're always going to be like that forever. You might adapt slightly, but you don't change your identity. And I just think that really at Chelsea now, the main issue and reason why this constantly happens all the time is the fact that I get this sense, and I think you were saying this too earlier when we were speaking, that there's like a burnout with the players, you know.
Yes.
They can only maintain that level of performance under managers like Mourinho and Conte for a short period, because it requires a lot of, obviously, physical work. It requires a lot of, it's the mental fatigue as well, you know, that mental fatigue of, you know, imagine you're Hazard, you know, I'm feeling a bit tired, but I need to run back 60 yards to help out Alonso type of thing. And of course, that mental fatigue isn't as strong if you're challenging for the league and you're close to winning something. Then you can fight through that, but you can't keep that mental consistency for years. You know, I think didn't the players who were under management by Arrigo Sacchi, they only said that they could maintain that for like four seasons until they had to adapt and change things. And realistically, the maximum life cycle of a team, its system and its tactical nature, only lasts up to 4 years maximum. That's the most you can drag it on for. And I just think now, because the players have been used to playing in similar systems where it's all about defensive cohesion, defensive shape, blah blah blah, you know, I think that now that mental fatigue it's come back even quicker now.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the comparison that I always make is that, you know, if you are, you know, if you've ever kind of played sport at any level, you're more inclined to run and actually put in the yards if you're playing for a manager that you like. But equally, if you're playing, particularly football, if you're playing in a team that plays good football, if you're playing expressive football, it's fun, it's enjoyable, you more likely are going to jog back that sort of 50, 60 yards to make the tackle. And when you're playing in a team that's quite robotic. And, you know, I look at the current, you know, kind of makeup of the squad, and, you know, I'm not going to say that it's the strongest squad that Chelsea have ever had, but it seems geared to be playing a slightly more offensive style of football than the one that we seem to find ourselves playing, particularly this season. And I think, you know, some players are just tired of it. They've had Mourinho for what, two and a bit seasons. You know, Conte's obviously come in as a very similar, intense style of manager. It was a little bit why I think some people pointed to Simeone and Atletico Madrid, why they had that massive dip after they won the league. You can only sustain those kind of levels mentally for a very short period of time. You know, it's not a kind of style of management that is conducive to sort of every single season. It's going to be at this, you know, 100% level that you're going to have to be at. And I just think he's been found out a bit this season, both tactically. I think his work on the training ground is obviously showing up in just the number of very similar injuries that we're having. And, you know, I don't want to draw a comparison between a checker trade trophy game and, you know, the different levels in terms of Premier League football. But Joe Edwards today started the game with a three at the back, saw within about 20 minutes that it wasn't working, immediately shifted the team to play 4-3-3. And then as the game grew on, they started taking control in the second half. And that is indicative of this kind of young breed of new managers and coaches that are coming through. Look at Germany, you've got the likes of Nagelsmann, the guy at Schalke, whose name I always completely forget. But these kind of young managers who are maybe used to kind of seeing or trying to encourage attacking, aggressive, front foot football. And, you know, the players in that game today, they didn't sort of sulk and go, oh, you know, we've trained all week to play 3-4-3. They snapped straight into 4-3-3, got on the ball more, and it was evident by the end of the game that, you know, when they got the equaliser, they were maybe unlucky not to pinch another goal. And I think that's a huge difference that you can see, particularly with Conte's players, is that they don't have that energy that they maybe had last season, and I don't think it's not magically going to return unless we maybe go down the Milan lab or potentially Guardiola's special doctors that he has at City. But, it's a difficult one, really. Yeah,
it is, because I mean, against Watford too, I think it's probably the first time, actually not the first time, the second time this season. The first time I saw a performance similar was against Man City, where it was the manager's fault as well as the team's fault individually. A lot of players weren't really putting the same effort in. I thought Luis's performance was pretty weird in a way. I wasn't really seeing that fight in his belly. Cahill just looked like a typical Cahill, in my opinion. You know, when it just goes to show if Aspie and Luis aren't on their game, then you can't rely on Cahill to do anything. You know, they really just paper over a lot of the cracks as Gary Cahill. I mean, even Aspie was very uncharacteristic.
Yeah,
not getting close enough, not getting tight, and you know, that's like Conte's like teacher's pet, isn't he? So
yes,
I think that really sums up. If you're even seeing Aspie performing a bit poor now, you know, that's Mr. Consistent right there.
Yeah.
It's just summing up.
In the case this season, I think Azpilicueta has not been at that high level, but I also think that's a lot to do with those around him. You know, you still kind of forget that he's not a natural centre back, and you know, a lot of centre back play is dependent on the system around you. And
exactly,
you know, just sort of talking about Cahill, I mean, he gets absolutely slaughtered on Twitter and stuff like that. But I mean, there has to be someone at that club who can have a talk with Conte and just say, look, you know, it's not working now. I mean, he was getting tied in knots by Richarlison and I mean, Deeney looked about 7 stone overweight, and I mean, he was just mauling Cahill like he was a little kid. But the thing that really irritates me, and this is maybe more the fan in me talking than anyone who's trying to analyse anything to do with football, but I really cannot stand that after games where we play particularly poorly, that it's always Thibaut Courtois coming out and talking to the press. For me, the one thing that I would always admire about JT was if we got smashed by someone unexpectedly, Terry would be out there and just, you know, he would completely take
that responsibility and everything. Yeah,
Cahill just ducks. And that, for me, that's the club captain. And that's a thing that, you know, I think, again, you know, growing up watching Dennis Wise, Desai, Terry as sort of my captains at Chelsea, to then go from that to Gary Cahill, who won't even front the media up. Forget how bad he's played. I mean, that is a criminal piece of leadership. And how he can remain the club captain, you know, I think he's incredible. It's just a really, really mad situation. We're in a position where our captain probably doesn't deserve to play. And, you know, I mean, I don't know how long his contract's still for, but, you know, for me personally, for the good of his reputation at Chelsea, you know, I don't want him to get into a situation where Ivanovic, where he stayed 1 year too long and was just, I mean, like,
zero out.
Yeah, you know, it's I don't want him to be in that case, because, you know, in Munich and in Amsterdam, he was fantastic in 2 of the best games that I've been a part of as a Chelsea fan. So he does get a little bit of reprieve from me, but I think he's very close to teetering on that edge where he's just looking terrible every single week. And it's nothing to do with the system. It's nothing to do to, you know, who's playing the wing back outside him, who's playing central, where he's playing. Anywhere in that back 3, he's playing poorly. So, you know, for me, Conte has to take him out the firing line at least and try something a bit different. Even play Ampadu there. I know he's not the same size, but, you know, I think he proved tonight that he can hand away a quite gigantic centre forward. So yeah.
Exactly. And I don't know. I mean, I've heard a few things about Cahill. I know that he definitely does. You know, he definitely suffers from a lack of confidence. I know that he's been seeing a lot of sports psychologists a lot of time to really try and boost his mentality. And I think the fact that this has become a regular thing for him throughout this season, in particular, is really summing up, you know, how he handles the pressure. And you know, with Gary Cahill, he's never been a player that's really able to handle the pressure that well. As you're saying, after poor losses, he's never really coming out, taking responsibility for the team, being a real leader. He never really was, and it just really baffles me. You know, this is another baffling Conte decision as to why he felt Cahill should be the captain. I'm thinking it's the fact that he was English, and, you know, managers like, you know, obviously if you're managing an English team, prefer your captain to be English, you know, and I don't think he really put any attention or really cared too much about the captaincy at all, really. But I think another reason why Conte likes him is because he's just built like a tank, really. I think that's the physicality aspect. I really can't see why. I mean, I don't know. I mean, there's just been so many baffling decisions by Conte, and I really the research I've been doing for this video, I'm really starting to understand, you know, his training methods more and why they affect the first team, and it's really made me feel even more hopeless, if I'm being honest, in the fact that nothing really is going to change until, you know, unfortunately, the guy goes. That's just the reality I'm seeing right now.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, just talking about Cahill, it reminded me, I saw an absolutely phenomenal tweet about him yesterday. Someone said that the manager who's given up, and we've got a captain that's probably buzzing that he's found a toy in his cereal, which I think really does sum up the attitude towards Cahill. But no, I mean, I completely agree. And to be perfectly honest, I think maybe the only reason that Conte is still in the job is that I think the club don't see a viable alternative to the end of the season. You know, Ancelotti is not going to come in for 6 months. I don't think Hiddink's last time pretty much just put him out of the running. And then it's a question of then, you know, have they done enough of their homework, you know, at this point in the season to go out and get the long-term manager, which they probably haven't done. They probably maybe started looking, as you would do if there's a lot of speculation that a manager's going to walk. But I don't think that they're in a position, particularly without having a sporting director or director of football on board, to maybe have a bit of a say in things, that they have really identified the right person. If they went out and got Tuchel, for example, without doing their kind of background or due diligence, they might, you know, not find necessarily, you know, the reason that he left Dortmund was pretty much some of the stuff that Conte's sort of been picking up on this season to do with not having control over transfers, etc. So they need to do their kind of due diligence. I'd rather them not completely rush into just making an appointment for the sake of it. So yeah, but I think he's the reason he's been saved primarily is that there's no available options. I would have loved to have seen something really ballsy like Joe Edwards, maybe with Eddie Newton. Yeah, that would have been a very interesting appointment. And you never know, you know, if Edwards turns into your, you know, own version of Julian Nagelman at you know, Hoffenheim, I think he's at. That would be incredible. You know, this is a guy who plays some of the best football in the country. He's absolutely Chelsea through and through. Eddie Newton, you know, I mean, you don't really need to talk about Eddie Newton as assistant. What he did for Chelsea during that sort of 2012 run is pretty legendary. He's, again, another person who knows a lot of the players, knows the club. So maybe that would be a combination I'd like to see. But I think, it's probably a little bit too aggressive for the club. So, you know, it's just, for me, it's just a case that there's no one really available that they feel is going to come in and provide that bounce.
Exactly, because I've been hearing a few things in regards to management, and I think this is a nice direction to turn the conversation towards, because obviously I think a lot of people want to hear our thoughts on, obviously, Enrique and Tuchel, so you guys will definitely get to that. But I'm hearing things, for example, that Laurent Blanc. Well, basically, there's 3 categories for the type of manager we're looking at. Well, the club don't necessarily want to spend big money to bring in a manager, for example. Right. Even though Jardim is being linked with the club, he will cost money to actually bring him to Chelsea, because obviously he's got a contract with Monaco at this moment in time. And that would be difficult. Laurent Blanc has been on the shortlist too, obviously out of a job right now. His criticism really was that he couldn't really handle the big characters. But I mean, again, it really was one of his first jobs managing Paris Saint-Germain. And if I'm being honest, I thought he was pretty good in the terms of the football played. With that 4-3-3, controlling in the midfields. You know, obviously Verratti really excelled in that system. You know, the way that he played with a front 3 too, you know, Zlatan was more like a false 9 dropping deep, and then you had Di Maria and Lucas and Cavani, the inside forwards cutting inside. And I mean, they scored a lot of goals. And I think that for the cheap alternative to be Laurent Blanc, I think that would be pretty decent, because I think he'd get us playing football. He'd get us trying to control games. And I think that could get the best out of an Eden Hazard in terms of him obviously being a much more decisive side forward. And obviously other managers, which I never heard of, coming from the press, Luis Enrique is one. And yeah, I mean, Ancelotti, I don't know if there's anything really to that. I mean, I'm not too sure. I haven't heard anything. Maybe you have, but I just think that people maybe are saying Ancelotti because, you know, he used to
like him. He's a nice guy.
Yeah, I mean, I really, you know, I liked Ancelotti. I felt that we did a Mourinho to him, you know, by forcing Torres on his hands. I don't think that was a problem that he didn't really need to have. And I think, that's what cost us a lot of the big games, because in a way he was forced to have to use this £50 million striker that he didn't want to really have to use. And you know, we really messed up our own season, really.
Yeah, I mean the Ancelotti one's quite interesting because I think that was the summer where we didn't know we didn't want to sign Aguero, but we wanted to sign Torres, or we turned down Aguero to sign Torres, which was very interesting thing that I think came out a lot later. That was one of the decisions we made. I mean, in terms of sort of next managerial appointments, I think the main thing for me, and I think this has really probably just been exacerbated by what's gone on this season, is that the board, and I'm hoping that they're going to attract a good sporting director, someone to come in and actually really shape the footballing side of things.
Yeah.
Is that whoever that person is and whoever the coach is, that they are completely aligned with the direction of where they want to head. Because what we can't do is have the club have this very kind of loose transfer policy. You know, I think I made this point, about 70% of our signings over the past sort of 6-7 years have been 25 and under. And then you go and get Conte, who clearly, you know, wants very experienced, very finished article footballers, 29, 30, loads of experience to come in and just sort of play his style. I mean, it's never going to work. And until the club start doing maybe the sort of the kind of due diligence they need to do on managers, particularly if they want to go and become, you know, start attracting younger players. So, you know, this Leon Bailey guy, who I really like at Leverkusen, that's the kind of person I think we should be looking at, that kind of level of player and above, in sort of that kind of under 23 category. Sign those guys, sign top class players, but equally, you know, someone who is going to be able to provide opportunities to the academy players that we have. You know, we're quite uniquely positioned in that, yes, you know, we're not able to compete with some of these money clubs like PSG and City and stuff like that in head-to-head transfers. But what we do have, we have this incredible academy pipeline that means that actually, you know, if we get our act together, we don't need to go and spend money on squad players, and we can start cherry-picking transfers. So if we need to go and get a top-class striker, we can go and put on a £150 million bid in, because we kind of spend £200-300 million a summer anyway. So, you know, if you're looking for a player just to finish off the team, that to me should be the strategy going forward. So I'm not really massively concerned about the coach. I'm not bothered if it's not a name. I've seen a few guys in Germany that I think could be interesting. I know Chelsea have very much been linked with Brendan Rodgers, and I assume that, you know, for some fans that necessarily wouldn't go down too well. But you know, if you're looking at potentially like a transitional manager, some guy who would 100% give opportunities to young players, who would coach the kind of attacking style of football that you saw at Liverpool and that you see at Celtic, that kind of 4-3-3 passing football, would potentially be a good transition into maybe someone like Joe Edwards or Jody Morris. You know, 2 more years, get them working with him on a day-to-day basis, and maybe we can have our own manager in that respect. So, yeah, you know, I think what we're seeing more and more now is these kind of superstar managers. They come in with their complete own ideologies, and when it doesn't work out, we're kind of stuck with a system. You know, the main thing I would say at the moment is, if you were looking to bring in a new manager, I don't think we've got the players to play a back four currently. You know, so you know, we're kind of stuck with 3 at the back, because I'm not sure Marcos Alonso is an actual left back. I would be quite terrified to see him kind of out in that channel by himself defensively. Azpilicueta, is he more of a centre back now? Can he still play right back?
You're right on
Has he ever been a top right back? You know,
exactly. You're definitely right on Aspi, because you know that game against Bournemouth, and we did have to use a back four. I felt he was really poor playing as a fullback. He wasn't really getting forward. And I'm just thinking now, because Aspi has played deep for so long in his Chelsea career, can he necessarily play as an out-and-out fullback anymore? I'm not quite too sure.
No, I don't think he can. It's a tough transition. It was like Ivanovic. You know, he transitioned to being a right back. Then when he got a bit slower, we tried to move him back as a centre back, and he not like completely forgot how to play there, but he wasn't as effective. And I think that really was one of the major reasons we saw this accelerated downfall with him, was that he'd been this kind of, you know, I think people forget in his early days, he was a really good player. Ivanovic, really good player.
I think he's a Chelsea legends. Yeah,
you know, but the last few seasons, he just completely fell off a cliff form-wise. I think, you're right. I think I don't know if it necessarily be the same to Azpilicueta. Obviously, he's a bit younger, but you know, if you start playing, you know, a particular position, you know, third centre back is a very particular position to play. I don't think the transition to right back would be very fluid, at least.
No, I definitely don't think so. I don't know. I mean, this is what really frustrates me, because I've always felt, especially in this country, it's not really a country in terms of innovation. I mean, only now reports are coming out, for example, that England are starting to look at winter breaks. I mean, how many years too late? You know what I mean? I mean, clubs have been doing it for how many years? And it's just like, this is a World Cup year. You think if you were serious about your nation's chances, you would have introduced this beforehand. Does it really take that long? I'm not too sure. I mean, it's been such a ridiculous past 2 months, really. It's been like 3 games a week for 2 months now. It's nonsense. And again, I'm making this point about there being no innovation, because you're making the example in Germany. I mean, it's a very forward-thinking league, a lot of progressive young managers. You made that point earlier too about the youth team. How now, again, a lot of us guys have played Football Manager or FIFA. We like to switch up our formations seamlessly, and we don't really put any thought or effort or care into that. But to do that in real life football is extremely difficult, because you need to have players who are very good, very tactically aware, technically aware as well. And obviously it shows you the signs of the quality of the player you possess. Now, I thought that was very interesting, because I think that could be actually the future of football. In a way, Chelsea are pioneering that type of style here. If the club were innovative, if they were, if they looked to really, if they realize, what, the footballers we're producing now are some of the best in the country.
Yep.
We're good enough now, but we can develop our own style unique to other teams. So they couldn't really recreate that. And can you imagine in the future if that was the philosophy, where we focus on introducing a lot of the youth players? We had career paths like at Barcelona, where BT managers do move up to become first team managers as well, and that cycle and that continuity obviously continues. And of course, can you imagine in the future, 5 years from now, the seamless football, the seamless transition from formation to formation, that can give us a tactical advantage over a lot of teams, because in the Premier League there's still a lot of managers that aren't very good tactically. Now it's changing now because of the influx of money and a lot more foreign managers coming into the league, let's be honest. But I just really think that's the direction that the club should be brave enough to go down to, because again, as you said in that fantastic article you wrote, and a lot of us say too on Twitter, whatever, if we introduce some top class, world class players alongside that model, we're creating something special.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. I think a really, really interesting point, particularly about the style that the academy play in. This very kind of, I don't want to say it's formationless, because I mean, obviously there is an organisation of players, but they're so ridiculously fluid during games. I mean, you can, particularly Jody Morris's level and with Joe Edwards as well, they can play 3, 4, 5 different shapes in a game, and it's 100% not something that you see at the first team level. And I think one of the really, really interesting points, and I've had chats with Chelsea youth on Twitter about this in direct messages for a long, long time, is that actually if you so many people who are scared of giving youth team players chances in the first team, all this, they're not ready, etc. You couldn't drop most, if not all, of these Chelsea first team players into the under-18s, because they're not that, they wouldn't be able to play in the start. If you put Alonso at left back, he cannot do the kind of things that Castillo can do in that level, which is passing, movement, play almost as a midfielder at left back. I mean, they have such a range of skills and technical ability. Same with Conte and Bakayoko. I mean, you've got a Chelsea midfield, particularly at under-18s, who will go to Barcelona and pass their academy off the pitch, probably in second gear, and yet you put Bakayoko or Conte in there, they're probably going to struggle, because they're not that kind of player. And I think it works both ways. We're producing players who are incredibly technical, but they're also very athletic. They're very tactically aware. And the thing that you see tonight in games like tonight, they've got a bit of heart about them. They've got a bit of that old school Chelsea, which I know a lot of people talk about passion merchants and stuff like this, but it does matter when you have players who can combine all of the technical stuff, all of the athletic stuff, with a bit of substance to themselves. I mean, you see it in, there was a little bit of an incident. I think one of their players barged into the goalie. Immediately, you've got Reece James, you've got Trevor Chalobah, you've got half the team over there basically trying to smash this guy up. He's at least a foot bigger than most of them and a foot wider. But that's the camaraderie they have. And yet you look at the first team. I think I saw Bakayoko foul Wilshere the other day. He picked him up and apologised. I mean, that's really not, kind of the thing that I want to see in the London derby. So, I completely agree with you. This style that we're creating at kind of the youth team and the sort of development squad level, if you were to, say, appoint Joe Edwards and go bold in 2 years' time, I mean, that style of football, with a Hazard or next kind of player, hopefully we bring something in like that. I mean, it would be frightening to see if you give him a really good squad with obviously a lot of quality young players. I think he would do absolutely fantastic. But whether the club have got the you know, the balls to go for someone internal, I don't know. But you're right. I mean, you look at Barcelona, the amount of models and players they bring through with this B team model is fantastic. You know, Guardiola, Enrique, I'm not hugely keen on, but he still wanted to do, you know, fantastically well at Barcelona.
Villanova, another one.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Villanova. Yeah, and even the players they brought through from, you know, that golden generation. It's the same principle. So, yeah, I mean, I'd like to think the club would be bold, but yeah, you know, it's likely going to be the next flavour of the month manager, probably, you know, in the summer that we'll bring in and commit everything to, and when it goes wrong, we'll kind of wonder why again.
Exactly. But why do you think there's a reluctance of, you know, why do you think there's a reluctance of being innovative at the board? Because I mean, here's the thing. I mean, the realities are there's a lot of smart football people behind the scenes. So
yeah, there is. Yeah,
exactly. So it's not the case where it's just like, you know, there's businessmen that are clueless about football that don't know what they're doing. And there's a lot of people behind the scenes that try to push things through, try to, you know, obviously set the future of the club up as well. Why is it that a lot of those voices get maybe drowned, or they're not taken seriously, or, you know, for example, why, you know, your Jody Morris's, your coaches within the setup as well, why isn't there any pressure from within maybe to create these opportunities? I mean, is it hard to do that? Am I being too simplistic? What's the realities?
I mean, I think the reality of Chelsea for probably the past couple of years has been they've heavily relied on or almost leaned on the commercial side of the business to make decisions. And you know, I'm not in any way suggesting that, you know, the Nike deal and other stuff that they've managed to pull out of the bag is not beneficial, but it feels like the commercial side is guiding the direction of the football club. And you know, I've been doing a bit of research into this whole kind of club model, and you know, one of the really interesting things that Johan Cruyff said about Ajax was that they kind of lost what he called the technical heart of the club. So they didn't have any Ajax people back at the club again. And the main thing he was saying is that, you know, every decision that gets made at the club should be about, you know, he used a particular phrase. It was something like pursuing excellence on the pitch. Like every decision that we make, doesn't matter if it's which printers we buy for the office. It should be about, okay, these printers should, you know, give us, the, you know, it went to like that really kind of extreme example. I don't think realistically that we've had a strong enough football voice at the board level who's willing to challenge some of the decisions that get made by senior people. And I'm not saying that they're you know, that these people are clueless, but you know, the thing that slightly irritates me is that whenever we make a signing, it always kind of gets caveated with, "Oh, isn't that that's great business in the market?" Or, you know, what's business in the market? And that kind of thinking, I think, leads to you buying the Ross Barkleys and the Drinkwaters and the Palmieris and not looking at the top players. Do you think, oh, you know what? Current market is Italian and international. You know, he's just had an injury. He might come back and be a good player. You know, people were saying he might be as good as Alexandro, and all these sorts of kind of bargain kind of buys that we do from people who get football. Don't get me wrong, but they're looking at it from a business perspective. You know, they can thinking, okay, you know, we've spent 50 million in January. We might recoup that on Ross Barkley. We might recoup that on selling X, Y, Z. So what I would really, really love, and what I think is needed, is whether that's an external hire, you know, someone like Luis Campos would be really interesting, or Ralf Rangnick, who's at Red Bull Leipzig, or even, you know, someone like Michael Ballack, I think would be a really, really good appointment. Someone at the board level that Roman can talk to, that Roman can trust, that has the only concern is the football side of things. And I think potentially we have stepped away from that we've won 2 league titles in 3 years. No one's going to say no to that. But I think we've got to the point now where we've kind of used up all of our kind of capital in that area. I don't think that is a strategy that's going to work for us going forward. So yeah, I mean, to sort of answer your question, I just feel that there isn't enough really strong football opinion and people that are willing to make their point to the right people. I think, again, if you presented the case, you know, from talking to agents and stuff who deal with the club, that they're more than reasonable and they're more than likely to listen to you. But whether that person has been there for the past few years, you know, I think one of the only criticisms I really had of Emanalo is that he was perceived as a bit of a yes man, and I would love someone who, you know, he was a scout, he's been a coach, you know, he's obviously got some background in football. I would have liked him maybe to have been a bit more forceful sometimes of his opinion, but I'm hopeful that, you know, if the club do go down that route of appointing a new sporting director or football director, that they actually hire someone who can challenge at least some of the business decisions. Because I'm getting a bit fed up with the only positives that I'm seeing on any transfer is, but we got them cheap. It's not, you're not looking for that. You're looking for quality that adds to the first team.
Of course. But this is why I do get a bit worried in a way. Sorry, it's like an echo. But anyway, yeah, I do get a bit annoyed by that because, some things I'm hearing as well is that we were speaking earlier. I feel like this year in particular kind of feels like, maybe there've been a lot of power moves happening behind the scenes, especially with Emanalo leaving the club as well. That's freeing up a lot of space, and that's freed up like a power vacuum in a way, and it's become kind of like Game of Thrones behind the scenes in a way. Maybe not as violent as that, but exactly. Certain men are thinking like, hey, I want this job, I want that job, I want this type of power, I want to control this, I want to control that. And it's no surprise why this director of football appointment is going to take much longer to seal. And some of the things I'm hearing is that whoever might be the potential director of football isn't necessarily going to have the same amount of power as an Emanalo. They're going to have a very set role and job. And that's it. When it comes to final decisions, blah, 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 they're not going to have that say. I kind of feel like the club don't want to have that situation of having too many cooks in the kitchen anymore. And I kind of feel that in a way, maybe Marina is looking obviously to take more control because Roman's given her a lot more authority to have at the club. He's a billionaire. He's got billionaire things to do. Is there stuff about him getting a divorce with his wife or something?
I think that's already, all that kind of stuff's already been sorted out.
Is it the current one or his ex?
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. Exactly.
But I agree. Yeah, I mean, I think the thing that I think would be very useful, and this is something that I think the club maybe should look at, is we're very clandestine. We're very kind of secretive about who does what at the club, and I don't think necessarily that really helps fans. Some people are interested in this kind of stuff, some people aren't, but I think if you actually have Michael Emanalo's job description on Chelsea kind of changed every now and then, bits and pieces. If you had a very clear, okay, this guy is in charge of recruitment, he's in charge of this, he's in charge of that. Done. Yeah. So we know that, okay, it's this guy. It's not Marina, it's not Eugene Tenenbaum, it's not Bruce Buck doing his thing in America. This is what this guy's here to do. Exactly. And even just having that on paper, I think would be very useful. But no, it's I mean, there's a lot of stuff going on, I think, at the club at the moment. I'm hopeful that they've kind of maybe seen the errors of their ways. They have to. They have to. Yeah,
especially in terms of future managerial appointments as well. I mean, for example, the way Conte left Juventus, now really that should have made a lot of people at the club really take notice. Is the exact scenario happening with Conte now at the club is exactly what he was doing at Juventus beforehand. And I really can't believe the club just completely dismissed that reality, especially when the board level don't really tolerate and that type of behavior for managers. No. And I don't know, that point earlier you were stating that there's no communication with fans, and that really annoys me. I hate this corporatization that that all these clubs are becoming these days, where they don't feel they have to liaise with the fans. I mean, without the fans,
I think that's nothing at Nini, actually. So I mean, the one thing that I've seen, which I think has been quite positive, is that Chelsea went out and hired the guy who used to be CEO of Vodafone, Guy Lawrence.
Yeah,
and, someone I actually know on Twitter quite well. He used to work for Vodafone, and he tells me this guy is pretty clued in on his sport. And in terms of an actual CEO, he seems like a pretty decent guy. So I'm quite hopeful that I mean, that kind of move, if that kind of secures the commercial side, more to do with the kind of fan side, then hopefully he's going to be a bit more open to, as you said. I think that the openness is going to be key, because I do feel like, I'm not saying that we should be privileged to every piece of information that happens at the club, but there are some core things which I think a lot of people are interested in, particularly, I think player recruitment has become a very hot topic, even for fans who maybe, all they care about is just going up and having a beer and watching Chelsea. The amount of comments I've seen from fans who aren't necessarily into the ins and outs, talking about transfer policy, it's very, as I said, it's a hot topic. And actually just having a black and white on the website that says, this new guy, sporting director A, this is his role, this is what he's in charge of, this is what he's here to do, scouting network, scouting players, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, that's it. Then you know what's going on. Instead of all this kind of, did Marina do the negotiation? Was it Emanalo? Was it some other guy? Is Roman doing it? Is Roman's dog doing it? It's kind of weird situation that you're in. But I just think I would like to see the club be a little bit more transparent. Obviously it's a privately owned entity, and realistically, the owner can do it as he likes. But I think it's beneficial.
Disappointing though how that's like the model. I mean, if we've never had Marina speak, I mean, we'll never ever hear Roman speak at all. I mean, no. And it's probably impossible for anyone to even try and. I mean, even when you say hello to him and try and take a photo, he says nothing. So that, yeah, exactly, and so that will never happen. But I don't know, it's annoying, but yeah, moving the conversation towards obviously some of these potential managerial appointments. Now, a lot of people are pretty disappointed with Links and Enrique. It feels like it's a typical safe Chelsea move of constantly just, looking at a CV manager because of past success, not really caring about how they achieved that. And another guy we're linked with as well, Thomas Tuchel. That seems to have got, a lot of Chelsea to have hope in regards to that signing, because again, he is available. He hasn't signed for anyone. He's waiting for the right club to come in the summer. I mean, I don't know if Jupp Heynckes is going to stay at Bayern for next season. I'm not too sure. He is getting quite old.
Yeah, he's the OG.
Yeah, the original OG. And there's reports that Bayern could even be looking towards Tuchel for the job, so he could have potential competition for that. But your thoughts, starting with Enrique, do you just try and scratch your eyes out when you even heard of that stupid rumor?
I think you nailed it. I mean, you summed him up perfectly. He's a CV manager. And actually, I had a look today, just on his Wikipedia, just to have a little look at what he's been up to. And outside of Barcelona, I mean, his win percentage or work is absolutely dreadful.
You got Roma 72, I think.
Yeah, nothing 72 at Barcelona, and it's like 30s, 40s elsewhere. And I mean, I will concede that Guardiola at Barcelona was a fantastic coach, but I mean, realistically, I think my mum could coach Barcelona to win most games. She knows Messi's a good player. Get the ball to Messi. You look like a defender. You do some defending. Just get the ball. I mean, that's basically a league title. If he doesn't get injured, pretty much that's La Liga sorted. So, I think particularly I look at Roma as maybe the biggest comparison, and I don't think he really did anything there to me that suggests he's anything other than just a manager who's managed Barcelona. And it's different to Guardiola, who obviously went to Bayern and kind of rebuilt them, and what he's done at City. I mean, for me, he's completely proven, and that's unquestionable. Whereas I think if Enrique went to Bayern, he may do okay because it's Bayern, but if he comes to Chelsea, we don't have that level of player. I think at the moment where it's just an easy, okay, I can pick 11 names out of a hat and they'll probably go and win the game. So no, for me, I would be very disappointed if that was the appointment. But Tuchel, I mean, this is something that I like. I like the style of football that he plays. I like his character. I like the fact that he has integrated a lot of young German players into that Dortmund team. Weigl being one of my favourite sort of holding players has come through under him. I think really the downfall of him is that Bayern just cherry pick their best players every single season. And if we had a season where City came in and bought Hazard, bought Courtois, bought whoever the following season, it's difficult to replace. And I think he fell out with the board because I think maybe not so much in the situation with Conte. I think he was more sort of exasperated that they were selling their best players or not able to tie them down to contracts, so they were just going to Bayern. It's an impossible task. You've got an already dominant club buying all the best players from the second place team. But I think from a playing standpoint and from someone who could work with a really top director of football as a coach, I think he's excellent. And personally, if you're looking at Klopp and Tuchel, I think Tuchel's a better version of Klopp. I think that they were better defensively under him. That may not look the case with stats or whatever, but from memory, better defensively. And maybe the right kind of profile of manager that I'd like to see as well. Not this kind of superstar, rock star or kind of manager flavour of the month. Someone who actually, who might come in, could probably, actually coach the team, change it up a little bit, do different things. I mean, he's noted for playing various formations at Dortmund, 4-2-3-1, 4-3-3, 3 at the back. He's not someone who's wed to a particular idea. And I mean, from the people that we've been linked to, like at least sort of in a slightly less picking a name out of thin air approach, I think he's probably the name that I'm most impressed with, and would definitely like to see it happen. As I said, the only thing I would want to happen is that the club definitely speak to him about his relationship with the Dortmund board, because you don't want to hire another person who comes in and is expecting 5, 6, 7 million, £100 million worth of players to come in, and the reality is he might get a couple of players in the academy. Like there needs to be an agreement that this is the way forward. This is how we're going to do things. Can you work with this situation? If it's a yes, then for me, I think he's very, very high on the list of people that I'd like to see come in.
Okay, I don't know. I need to fully research on him a bit more. I did watch Dortmund under Tuchel a bit. Obviously, they're playing like a Schalke or Bayern Munich, but I was always a bit curious about his big game records. I've always felt that he didn't necessarily do the best from a tactical aspect with his team. Of course, Dortmund had a very young team, and by young team, I mean a lot of young players in key positions, that maybe prefer a bit more experience to be in. So, of course, I'm not going to judge too much, but I did feel too that maybe it was a bit too, it wasn't as strong, but maybe coming to Chelsea, it could be different, sometimes if you've got, maybe a bit more experience or better players in certain positions, that can really help elevate what you're trying to do. Maybe again, it was a very young team. If he was there a few more seasons, things could have progressed a bit more. So obviously, I'll be open-minded about that. But I mean, really, that's the type of profile of manager we need. Now, ideally, here's how I'm basically seeing things for the future in terms of management. Now, whatever manager we bring in, he's not going to be getting a big transfer budget.
No, I can't say that.
It's not going to happen. So I'm thinking realistically, if he was to go for a Jardim, for example, he's not going to get the type of money where he's going to be able to really buy maybe some of the attacking players that he's going to want to have. And I'm really thinking, honestly, for Chelsea, and I've already, I'm always thinking about the future. I'm very long term. I make this point all the time on streams. In the next 2 seasons, the European footballing landscape will be completely different. Now, why is that? Bayern Munich, all their best players are getting old. Barcelona, Iniesta will be the next one retiring soon. They're all getting old. They've lost Neymar, so they're not as safe as they thought they could, but they'd never be able to lose one of their top players. Real Madrid's Ronaldo, look at the season he's having. Benzema, a lot of their players getting old now. You can say that for most teams now. Now, for me, Man City are probably the up-and-coming team in terms of the recruitment, and obviously this emphasis on buying defensive players. They're set now for the next 5 seasons, really. I'm thinking now, realistically, what Chelsea need to do, especially with the young talent they have, I think it's time now to bring back a Ranieri type of manager. Realistically, for us to challenge consistently like we should be doing, we're going to need patience. We're going to need time. It's not going to happen all of a sudden. Yeah, we could decide to continue this model of bringing in your Conte managers where, you might, you'll win something, but then you won't win anything the next year. And you're going to be going down that same path. And in terms of stability and structure, it just won't last if we continue down that way. I'm thinking now it's a time now to bring back a Ranieri type of manager. It's time now to really focus on who the players want to develop. Let's give these guys consistent game time, because by the time they're 24 years old, 25, they're going to be completely different. Get these guys playing together consistently with some quality around them. They're good enough to be getting into the Champions League, I feel, or getting into Europe. Get them ready for the battle in the next 2 seasons, because then, your Madrids, they're going to be spending like crazy, and there's no way in hell they're going to find that exact replacement for Ronaldo. That's going to take them a few years. Bayern Munich, they're shitting themselves. Robben's 30, Ribéry's 30-something. They're going to struggle to find top quality replacements for those players. Same thing at Barca, goes on and it goes on. And this is why, for example, why Barca even had to pay 140 million, because they need that Iniesta replacement and, really continue as the best player on the market to fill that role. And I just think that that's what the future is going to look like. The club should accept that reality. Yeah, that could work. I think us Chelsea fans would understand if it's communicated to us that we're going to have to maybe, keep some of the resources down a bit. We've got a new stadium coming. We're trying to secure extra deals in the future. Things are going to be bright. We're going to be challenging. We've got a vision for how the club's going to be in the next 2-3 years. Chelsea fans, obviously we need your support. We need your patience. Fans, they get by anything their club offers. You know what I mean? So it's not going to be hard to sell anything to fans. I think that's the route we need to go down to. A manager that could fill that. Honestly, I'd like to promote from within because I think that could be a nice experiment to start with. We're not going to lose Hazard just yet, you know. Probably got to keep it for another year or something.
Yeah, I'd say so, yeah.
And I think maybe a Brendan Rodgers, you know, as we've said on previous streams before, he's well respected at Chelsea, knows everything inside and out. A lot of you guys watching this stream, you know the point we're trying to make. It's not about your record or what you've won before. It's about how you complement the team and the direction that the club want you to offer, you know. I think Rodgers could obviously bring that in terms of his style, his way of playing football with better players as well. I think that could be a good, you know, and then the main things actually is that he develops players and improves them. I mean, even at Liverpool, what he did with Sterling, Suarez stopped missing, he stopped being a Cavani impersonator, missing the easiest of chances. He became, you know, a 30-goal-a-season striker under him. And then he was off to Barcelona. Sturridge became consistent, got 25 goals. He improves players and makes them better. Now, when Coutinho first signed for Liverpool, he was seen as kind of like a flop. He didn't do well at Inter. You know what football's like. It's a very cynical sport. You know, if your stock's down, clubs just won't look at you. He was like, there's a player in this guy. The guy just got sold for 140 million this January. The guy improves players. Chelsea needs to follow that direction, I feel, to be ready for when we sign the next big manager in the next maybe 3 seasons, 2 seasons, to start challenging him in this team for trophies, just as we did with Ranieri and then when Mourinho took over.
I completely agree. I think for me personally, I mean, if we're going to be in a position where we're not spending a ton of money, there is enough quality out on loan and coming through the academy that if the aim is just top 4 for the next couple of seasons, while, you know, hopefully the new stadium gets developed and anything else like that. I mean, you should definitely be able to come top 4 with Zuma coming back, Van Hinkel. You know, you've got Tammy Abraham. Looks like he's got back into a bit of scoring form. I mean, these are players that, you know, if you've got a squad of 25, you bring all these loan guys back. Maybe every season you go out and you buy a really, really top end young player. You go out and buy a really top end young player or one top player, and you keep adding them to the squad. But then the rest of it is just chuck all the 18-year-olds into the squad, get all the loan players back, and just see what happens. There's more than enough there to compete and come in the top 4. I mean, I look at some of the players who are playing regularly for some of the teams that we're you know, competing with. The 2 fullbacks at Liverpool. I mean, you know, I think that one of them had the right back had a pretty decent game the other night. But I mean, again, these are players who would be nowhere near our academy side. They wouldn't be in our academy team. We beat Liverpool regularly in every competition, even if we're playing a team that's 2 years, you know, pretty much 2 years younger than in the FA Youth Cup. Yeah. But why can't we produce some fullbacks? Why can't we have some people coming into the squad?
John Sterling, who looked, I mean, his physicality in this game against Lincoln. Remember that point in the game where there were 3 Lincoln players on him and he still held off the ball. It's just like, Sterling, you know what I mean? We've got Jada Silva, you know, we produce a modern day fullback that can play further forward, can defend, can play in midfield. You can build attacks with. Got that. It's just the direction we go through. I mean, if you tell me the difference between Sterling and Zappacosta, is Zappacosta on a different level? I mean, exactly. You know what I mean? Sterling, you could say already he's as good as Zappacosta, and he's 18 years old. Imagine him in 3 years' time. You know, it's time now we bring back
Sterling. If Conte gave him the same amount of minutes and paid the same amount of attention to Sterling this season, Sterling would be Chelsea's right back for the next 10 years. Like it's, you know, you're looking at basically Carl Walker with more technical ability. That's basically what Dijon Sterling is. He is the best athlete at the club, and he's a great player. Great cross. Can play as a winger. Can play as a defender. Can play right back. Play wing back. Play right mid. Play right wing. Play up front. I mean, he's a complete footballer. And yet we're seeing David Zappacosta, Borat, play regularly. This is a guy who, I mean, he played left back against Watford. I mean, he was absolutely atrocious. I mean, okay, and he was obviously not. I'm not saying he was the worst player on the pitch for us, but I mean, he was very, very poor. I mean, look at the kid tonight, even at that Castillo guy. You know, I mean, this is a guy who, you know, I think he could probably deal with a little tricky winger in the Premier League, because he just had some absolute lump trying to kick him up in the air for 90 minutes, and he came through it fine. So, yeah, but, you know, to your point, I mean, you know, having a manager like Rodgers come in, you know, a lot of people will, I think, you know, probably wrongly just sneer it and maybe not give it the thought that's probably needed. But as someone to develop a team or core of a team over the next 2 to 3 seasons, I mean, if you were to take your Rubens, your you know, Dujons, your Callum Hudson-Odois, and give them 3 years under a manager who actually gives them confidence.
Exactly.
By the time you might want to go out and get like an absolute worldy manager, you're giving him probably the best young squad in the country, and that for me is not really debatable. But you know, again, it's a question of whether Chelsea have that kind of patience. But the way I would sell it is, you know, you probably don't have to spend a penny over the next 2-3 seasons, which, you know, for the club is probably. That's about the only thing that's going to make them listen. But, you know, it's true. You know, you're not going to have to spend a ton of money because you've got a manager who's more than capable of developing players. And let's be honest, again, the raw ingredients you're giving him are the best in probably Europe. You're not giving him a Liverpool academy or whatever. You're giving him
exactly,
you know, world-class, World Cup winning, European Championship winning, Champions League winning kids, which is, you know, for me, that's quite exciting.
Exactly. So, I mean, really, in terms of the finances, with all these, you know, with Townsend and Lawrence in charge now, they have a record of securing massive deals, bringing in, you know, huge contracts as well. I think there's reports that there's going to be a big deal announced in end of this month or around March or something. I think I heard that somewhere. I mean, financially, the club are going to be making more money than they've ever made in the next following years. So now is really the time to develop that, because we're not really missing out financially. You know what I mean? Really, it's just not really a risk anymore, because really, if this model continues, as we're seeing with Mourinho, he was there for 3 seasons, you know, in his second spell. It took till the 3rd season to see the collapse. Conte, he's been here for 2 seasons. The 2nd season, we've seen the collapse. If we go for another CV manager, we'll see a collapse immediately, because again, it's not sustainable, this model, as we're seeing. Exactly, it's not. So I'm just praying that, I mean, again, all we can do is we're still going to support the club regardless, but just pray really that things are going to happen. But I'm thinking out maybe for the last 20 minutes before we keep things moving, you know, a lot of people talk about the boards not having any ambition. You know, for example, again, I'm someone where, you know, to popular belief, you know, I like different opinions. You know, I'm one of those old school guys where, you know, if I like to hear things I don't like, so I can further strengthen my argument, or maybe see things from a different side. I don't really think that hurts. Yeah, it's not that crazy. You know what I mean? And I'm just thinking that a lot of times people that maybe have like certain ideas about the club, let's say for example, if you know Conte out, you're a plastic, this, that, whatever. You know, they tend to share the same arguments, and there's no real nuance to anything, and there's no real like different opinions brought into the fray. A popular one with them is that it's the board's fault. They've shown a lack of ambition, and this is the reason why Conte can't do anything now. You know, what's your thoughts and opinions on that?
Okay. I mean, the reality is, I think this season we have spent probably nearly £300 million on players, and you know, people talk about this. You know, don't talk about net spend, fella. I mean, that's kind of by and by the by. We spent an inconsiderable amount of money, and the main argument that I see is that, you know, these are not Conte players, and you know, it's nonsense. I mean, it really is. I mean, you know, from looking at the players and just being logical about it, the only player that Conte probably has no idea about is Ross Barkley, and that for me is a 100% cannot argue club buy. Yeah. Now, whether each player that we got was first choice on Conte's list or, you know, whatever, that for me, that's absolutely debatable, and I'm happy, you know, people to have those opinions on it. But if you are sitting there and thinking that Conte in a press conference is telling you that he doesn't know who Italy's left back is, Emerson Palmieri from Roma, and that, you know, again, on the other hand, that Marina is sitting there with a copy of FIFA or Football Manager, and you know, she's not running the club, she's also the head scout now because Emanalo's gone. You know, I find it very strange that people do believe every word that he says. You know, you're talking about, you know, him saying that he has no hand in transfers. Did Chelsea scout Torino's right back? I mean, they might have looked at. I mean, again, as someone who, I mean, I watched a lot of Belotti last season because I really liked him as a forward. the thing that concerns me is if we buy a player from a club that I watch a lot, because I watch a lot of Roma. So Palmieri is a little bit iffy for me because I don't really remember him as such. I like watching Nangolan. He's one of my favourite players. Same with Belotti. I liked watching him last season. I have no recollection of David Zappacosta, and that always worries me because, you know, like you for example, if you watch Lyon, you like Nabil Fekir, you probably look at someone like Ndombele in midfield. You probably he's quite a good little player, and then you start noticing him in games. The fact that people think that Conte had no say in buying Zappacosta, Rudiger plays in Italy, you know, Palmieri, I mean, he's Italy's left back until he got injured, is to me very, very strange, you know, and he's obviously come out and said that he wanted to buy Van Dijk as well, and whether that would have been a really fantastic use of money. So the fact that he hasn't been backed, okay, you know, the Alexandro deal, I think probably there's a bit on the club, there's a bit on Conte there as well. I think you've expressed opinions on this, which I agree with quite a few times now. But, you know, I mean, you're talking about, I think Sandro would have been a really fantastic player to have at the club, but is he the difference between us beating Watford, beating Bournemouth? You know, he's a left wing back. He's a world-class player, but he's not the difference between picking the wrong players and other stuff. Same with Morata. I mean, are you saying to me that this is a guy who has expressed an opinion that he's always wanted to work with Conte? He's plucked that out of thin air. He's never had a conversation with Conte about coming to potentially pay for him. You know, Morata again is an absolute bona fide pick from Conte. So,
of course, I mean, he's signed him for Juventus. So yeah,
exactly, yeah. And Drinkwater's the same. You know, a lot of people at Chelsea will say that he wanted to pair Kante and Drinkwater together. That was one of his things that he tried to do actually when he first came to Chelsea, when he first signed Kante, was to try and sign Drinkwater because, you know, again, you know, people say, oh, he's an English. What does he know about him as a Premier League player? If you look at the characteristics of Drinkwater, he's basically the English version of Marquisio. He is a water carrier in midfield. You know, he's a good passer. He's got a good bit of technical ability in that. But Marquisio was never the superstar in that Juventus team. You had Vidal, you had Pogba, you had Pirlo. A bit like Drinkwater. That's the kind of player he wanted.
Good looks in midfield. That was all, you know.
Exactly, yeah. You know, so it's these kind of people who seem to believe that a manager with clear, you know, logical ties to players, either they play in the Italian league or that they're players that that characteristics that he absolutely loves, that he has absolutely no say in them. You know, for me, that's very strange to say he's not been backed. I mean, I think probably since, and also if you include his first season, he's had about nearly £450 million spent on players. And you look at that squad, and I would say not many of them, if at all, have not come from him as a recommendation. And I'll say it again to people, you know, it's not the case of always going for first choice players. You don't always get first choice players. Even Barcelona and PSG don't always get their first choice players. That's just how things work. So in that case, when you're down to your second, third, fourth choice manager, that's actually where the coach has more of an impact, more of a signing, because the club are saying, oh, hang on a minute, we're down to kind of plan C here. Like, what do you think? Because you probably know the Italian market, you know the Italian players better than us. Which one do you want to go for? It's not some random scout sitting there with a copy of data analytics and crunching numbers and coming up with David Zappacosta. It's more than likely going to be the guy who brought him into the Italian squad that's picked him. So yeah, I mean, for me, it's logical, but I think people just they want to blame everyone else apart from Conte for some of these decisions. And
of course,
again, it's really, really strange to me. I said, it's first choices versus second or third choice in most cases. And for me, I think the thing that people don't understand is the further you get away from the first choice pick, it's more than likely going to have more of an association with the coach, because if you present a player, the club really like X, Y, Z. Okay, he's gone to Bayern, he's gone to wherever. Okay, so our next choice is such and such. Bakayoko, again, another player that Conte absolutely raved about, absolutely wanted. In terms of one of the first picks that he made. Watched him for Monaco in the Champions League. A player that he really wanted. And again, he's people who say, oh, it's a club signing. Why do you think he's playing so much? Exactly. He's been in bad form. For me, he's needed a break from the team. And yet Conte is playing because he wants to prove himself right that it's the right decision for the club. But again, people would just say he's just picking him because, I don't know, Marina's telling him to pick him or something like that. It's not the case. I think people need to start looking at things a little bit more critical.
Exactly. Exactly. What would you say to, obviously, is my audio okay?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. What would you say to people that would be like, for example, well, yeah, you're saying all this stuff, but then why is Conte playing Bakayoko over Drinkwater all the time then if he wants him? What would you say to someone that could be thinking that?
I think from things that I've heard around the club, Bakayoko was one of Conte's absolute priority signings.
Yes.
And priority in the way that, again, another strange thing, he said that he was more than happy for Chelsea to sell Nemanja Matic because we had this this kind of agreement with Monaco that Bakayoko was going to become a Chelsea player.
Since January, right? Since January last year. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we've been looking at Bakayoko for a while. Conte was massively into him, and this weird kind of obsession with saying he's got nothing to do with players. He dropped Matic towards the end of the season for Fabregas, and bearing in mind at this point, I mean, Fabregas had barely kicked the ball for Conte. Everyone was saying that Fabregas was going to get sold in the summer. He barely played, and Matic lost his position to Fabregas. So, Matic wasn't happy. Matic wants to be a first-team player. Manchester United, obviously, Mourinho is a big fan. They came in for him. They said, okay, club, okay, we're quite happy with the fee. Conte okayed it. They're not going to sell a player. And this is another thing that I find very strange. The club are not going to sell a player or buy a player that the manager doesn't want. Yeah. And okay, the level of wanting someone and wanting to sell someone, there are degrees of happiness. You might be ecstatic, or you might be like, okay, it's a body. But they're not going to bring someone into the club really who the manager isn't in some way aligned with what they're thinking. So the Matic sale, this concept that the club threw Conte under the bus, that's ridiculous. And B, like I said, the Bakayoko transfer was probably in the wings for quite a while. Yes, it took quite a while to negotiate. He had some very complicated image rights deals with Monaco and a lot of intermediaries to kind of negotiate, which Chelsea are not, famously very not keen on doing these days. So that did take a while longer to negotiate. But as I said, it's his boy, it's his player, And I do think Conte is quite guilty of having almost this kind of nepotism towards players that he's definitely signed. He will always play Bakayoko. Even look at the Morata and Batshuayi thing. When Morata was going through that bad patch, Batshuayi couldn't get on the pitch. Yeah. Even to the point where Batshuayi was coming on and scoring a few goals. He's playing in the cup and scoring a few goals. He got dropped for Arsenal, and then he come back the weekend. He scored again, then he got dropped again. It's a little bit like he doesn't. I don't want to say he doesn't want players to do well, but there is a little bit of being political. I think in some of the things.
I definitely think that's. You really hit the nail on the head. That's definitely something that happens a lot in football. People need to really lose this mentality where it's just like, regardless of everything that happens behind the scenes, how you are, your relationship with the manager, how popular you are with the team, all this type of stuff. The reality is that managers will have favorites, and there will be a lot of political decisions in terms of whether this person's going to play or this person isn't going to play. Everyone needs to lose this mentality that natural ability alone is always going to get you into the team. If you're needing Hazard, yes, but there aren't many Hazards in the world. Clubs like that, like Chelsea, clubs know that if you're the best player, of course, you're going to be able to get away with more bullshit to get into the team. But with a lot of players, that's not the reality. And again, even in regards to Conte, to me, whenever I've heard him moaning about transfers, to me, all he's saying is that, well, I'm seeing what Mourinho's getting here. I'm seeing what this guy's getting there. Why can't I sign him? For example, in regards to Van Dijk. Now, in that press conference a few months back, what did he say about Van Dijk? He said that, well, he likes him and it'd be great to sign him so we can stop him from going to a rival and strengthening them. That was one of the main reasons that he wanted. Now, the old Chelsea maybe 10 years ago under Mourinho and been signed at Sean Wright-Phillips so we can stop him from going to another club. Yeah. We do that because, we were a much more stable, bigger club at that time. And that's reality is it's not the same anymore. It would have been stupid to spend that amount of money on Van Dijk. And, Conte would have been perfectly happy with it. And that would have just thrown Christensen under the bus. Yes. At the time, Conte just didn't care or doesn't think it's okay. Just because the manager doesn't necessarily favour or like youth players. Again, it's all philosophical. It doesn't mean that he's wrong or a bad guy. No, people, fans as well. Everyone's got their own ideas of football and their own ideas of what they like to see and how they want their teams to win. Some people don't necessarily care about youth. The only reason why maybe there's a lot more maybe backlash from fans is the fact that you know, it's quite a contrast, because when you've got the best youth academy in Europe,
Yes.
yet you're not using them, and then you're seeing the likes of your Barclays who haven't played in months. He's been a player that only performs for 1-2 months every season, never excelled. I mean, everyone's forgetting the criticism he was constantly getting, even from Match of the Day with Alan Shearer, players of that regards, constantly criticizing Barkley for not doing this, not doing that.
Yeah.
Got injured, hasn't played since, and now he's just stepped up to play for Chelsea. It's not supposed to work like that. It's not, you know, that doesn't happen. And you know, with Conte, that's just the realities. I mean, really, the only players I could say really that he was unlucky not to get, I think Sandro.
Yeah.
But again, as I said, for you know, you guys, I'm always repeating myself. I always get these idiots sometimes who say shit to me like, "Oh, you said that Chelsea had sorted the bank account out and he was coming." You know, they just listen to the first minute of a video. I said that it's a normal procedure for a club to prepare that type of stuff in advance. A lot of deals still fall through. You're not going to wait to the last day of the transfer window and then start creating his bank. But no, what's the guy going to do when he's able to?
Before I moved to Denmark to work,
yeah,
I hadn't signed my contract. I was still in the negotiation phase. The bank that I worked for had already created me a bank account and sorted me out with bills and everything before it moved. Now, they would have to cancel that if I didn't sign the contract. I'm just a banker. I'm not a professional footballer.
Exactly.
What you're talking about is when Didier Drogba first moved to Chelsea, one of the main things he said about the difficulty in settling the first season is that there were no player liaison type stuff. There is like a dedicated, almost like a concierge team, where you're saying they set up bank accounts, they set up schools, everything that you need in terms of your family. They'll find you a place to rent, place to buy, anything you can think of. This is now in place, which is exactly what we were talking about. But because this is in place, doesn't mean that it's going to come through in terms of a deal until the person is on the website. And even in some cases, we've seen players holding up a shirt like John Eben Mikel, who's been kidnapped. You know, they're not even part of the club. So I mean, you know, until it's official, things can change at the last minute. You look at the way Leicester negotiate transfers; they move the goalpost all the time. They're famous for doing it. Look at the City, the try for Morris in the January window. They, by all accounts, were very close at agreeing on a figure, and then all of a sudden it jumped £30 million to £95 million. It's
exactly,
you know, you're talking about in the last 2 hours of a window. It's insane. But you know, as I said, people will always say, "Oh yeah, you said X, Y, Z isn't going to happen." But you know, in most cases, most transfers, you never even hear about coming to light, because you said, you know, we might bid for someone who, you know, we put one bid in and you never hear about that bid because we doesn't go any further. It doesn't mean that we haven't maybe started trying to do the kind of due diligence to get them on board. But yeah, it's just one of those things.
Exactly. Maybe in the future, I think I might even just do like a specialized video on how exactly transfers work and how transfer stories and rumors come from and stuff, because a lot of people still don't fully understand. Of course, since I started the channel, I've understood things a lot more. You know, at the time, I didn't really know as much until, you know, I've been educated by people like you and a lot of other people as well. I just think maybe if the average fan could really understand how things work, how stories work, for example, they'd understand the nuances behind things and not necessarily get so emotional if, you know, let's say your Crouch is linked with a club and, you know, or Andy Carroll's being linked and stuff like that. You know what I mean? So that would just be best for them. But again, yeah, you know, with Conte, a lot of times it just comes across as, I know I'm sounding negative, you guys, but it just comes across as like sour grapes, because he's saying what everyone else is getting, he's not getting that. And it's just, you know, again, it just highlights, you know, his philosophy in terms of, you know, him winning for himself, really. I think that's it. I mean, did he really improve any players at Juventus? I mean, the only example people love to make is, oh, but Pogba. But I mean, if you'd watched Pogba, if you had watched Pogba, if you knew anything about him, you would have known this guy was already elite already. So it doesn't really take a genius to see that. And of course, you know, that he's like the Ronaldo of midfielders, 6 foot what, built like you know, exactly. So that was always going to really help him step up. But even then, I mean, with Bonucci, you know, did he really improve him? I mean, Bonucci at Milan's done, you know, he hasn't done anything really. He's looking more exposed, and it's just like you know, maybe he found a safer way to use Bonucci at the time. But again, he's another manager like Mourinho that doesn't develop players or improves them, you know. And again, you know, people just need to forget the board haven't backed Conte. They have. I mean, for example, we were close to trying to negotiate for Dzeko. I kind of had a feeling it wasn't going to go through because, you know, Jacko and his family weren't even too necessarily happy with it. And of course, if you're going to go for him, you can't offer the guy 1.5-year deal. You know what I mean? With the possibility of an extra year on top. He's not going to accept that. He's got a family, you know, he's got a life. They just settled in Rome. He's not going to give up all of that on the chance to sign for Chelsea for what, a few extra, you know, a little bit more money. No, of course not.
People do genuinely think at times that it is like Football Manager, where you just bid and there's no kind of background stuff in there. I mean, you look at the whole Peter Cech deal to Arsenal. I mean, again, this is an example I use all the time with people. Cech had so many offers from like Juventus and overseas clubs, but the club were, you know, maybe rightly or wrongly loyal to him. He stayed in London because his kids go to school here. That's the only reason that he wanted to stay in London. And he didn't want to go to QPR or Spurs, which is okay, that's fair enough. But you know, and that was purely down to family reasons. And like you say with Jacko, you know, I mean, you're not going to get a guy to completely relocate his lifestyle. I imagine living in Rome is pretty decent. Let's be fair.
Yeah, exactly.
To maybe have a you know, an 18-month contract here, it's just not. So yeah,
no assurances of even playing as much. You know, the manager won't be here. Will he be in the future manager's plans? I mean, it was just silly. And you know, people should be seeing this as the club backing Conte, because again, Conte wanted a target man striker. You guys know my opinions. Why do we keep looking at this basic way of playing where we have to? You look at, because again, I keep making this point. We limit ourselves to the type of players we can use. For example, could a Thiago? Possibilities that he might even be available in the summer next year. Now, really, for me, if Thiago is available, that's a guy I'd love us to see signing. But then, do we even play the style of football that would even make Thiago excel? Would you guys not be depressing Thiago come in and then he's got to try play defensive mid with Conte, and you're seeing him focusing on weight training in the training ground, and you know, and then but look how many tackles Thiago won. Do you really want us to sign him so we can say things like that? Of course, we'd have to adapt how we play. And you know, I mean, there's another guy who I really like. This guy from Racing Club called Lautaro Martinez. Like, I've been watching a lot more of him. He's a type of player. I mean, he's been linked with Madrid and Atletico. I think he was very close to signing for them. I don't know if they've got a deal to bring him in the summer. I need to research that. But I see it like this: if this 20-year-old kid is, you know, if he can play for Atletico now, then that tells me he could play for Chelsea if he could play for Atletico.
Yeah.
Why can't we sign these guys at 20 million? That become your 60 million pound, 70 million pound strikers. Why can't we sign those guys, you know, now and let them develop and grow, and then we're saving ourselves a fortune in the future? You know, Giroud really costs the same amount of money you could have got a Martinez for example. But this is what I mean, because of the way we play, a very antiquated style. And like I said, when I release these videos in the next few weeks, I'll break down what happens in the training sessions. You guys are going to exactly understand why everything's happening this season. You know, it's just frustrating, you know, it just really frustrates me.
Yeah, I mean, I think the thing that really gets me is you're right, is we pigeonhole ourselves into this style of play which needs a target man. I mean, there aren't that many good ones around. I mean,
exactly.
That's kind of immediately you're kind of limiting yourself to the quality you can bring in anyway. And the thing that I still don't understand, and this is why I think I'm more frustrated with Conte more than ever, is I'm not a huge fan of this false line formation with Hazard. You know, why are we chucking crosses into a 5'7" winger when we're playing Watford, who have got two of the biggest centre backs I've ever seen? I think one time we played this season, I think Alonso put in probably the first good cross he's put in all season, and Williams scored a header. But I mean, that's one instance in maybe 10 games where I think we've actually completed a cross to like the right person. I don't understand, but it's exactly what you're saying. Is you're limiting yourself from going out and finding these types of players. I mean, we used to do it a while ago. I mean, we bought Kevin De Bruyne for about £7 million. Yeah, I mean, he's like £100 million player minimum now. If Coutinho's 140, then he's definitely around that level. I mean, Lukaku was another player, obviously. Salah, you know, Courtois was incredibly cheap, but we seem to have moved away from targeting the absolute top, you know, the absolute top young players, which is something that we used to do. Even Oscar, you know, I don't think he panned out maybe necessarily how people wanted. But I mean, he was an elite,
basically.
He was, yeah. But I mean,
it could have been De Bruyne.
Standpoint.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes this is what I think. Sometimes, let's say in a alternate universe, Oscar has become the new Kevin De Bruyne now because they're very. I mean, they're probably identical playing wise.
Yeah,
similar style, similar everything. Now, De Bruyne couldn't get in this Chelsea team because of defensive work rate deficiencies. That type of bullshit nonsense. That that West Brom Tony Pulis mentality, if you want to call it that. And then, of course, De Bruyne excels when he's playing away. We saw Oscar regress because, again, Mourinho wasn't using him for his playmaking ability. Oscar's a playmaker. Yeah, we forgot that because he can press. That was it. We ruined one of the most exciting youngsters we've ever signed because at 19 was a Brazil international first team. He was playing as the number 10 at that age.
Yeah,
that doesn't happen very often, and we just ruined it because of a stupid manager.
Yeah. I mean, I think people forget he was coming off the back of like an exceptional Olympics tournament that he had. I remember watching him, just thinking like we've just signed Pete Kaka. I mean, we've just signed someone who is going to be absolutely incredible. Yeah, exactly as you're right. I mean, I do think with Oscar that he did have this patch of form which I think led to Juan Mata getting sold, which again, in hindsight, Mata is someone I've always liked because I think he's always been a really good player. But
underrated.
Oscar did have this kind of patch of form where he had about 2-3 months. I thought, Jesus Christ, this kid is something special. But then I think Mourinho's kind of got his claws into him, and someone described him as a false 10. So it's this Simeone used to do with one of the, I can't remember what the guy's name is now, but at Madrid he used to play a false number 10. So basically the number 10 is not a traditional playmaker. He's there because he is incredibly fit and he can press literally everyone because he's like incredibly athletic and fit. That was what someone told me that Oscar's position was. And I mean, it eventually ruined him. He still came up with he had this kind of 1 game in 10 where you just looked at him, just thought, what a player.
Yeah.
And then the next 9, you'd be like, okay, now he's running around again. But I think you're right. It's down to the manager. But I would love us to go back to having that kind of strategy at the club where you are, I mean, you're not going to hit every single transfer out of the park in some cases. I think Oscar maybe is a case in point. Some really high potential just obviously didn't work out for the reasons we've said. But I'd rather us go down that route and buy those sorts of players and then maybe not work out than go out and buy a Danny Drinkwater for he's like 28, 29 and get like a year out of him and that's it. You're paying a lot of money for someone who's experienced who may not really even fit into the side. So that would be my dream, to be going back to buying those sorts of players. Even Hazard was incredibly young when we bought him. I know he was a lot of money, but that's the sort of thing that I'd like to see us do, is to go and target the top young players and mix them with the academy. And then, as I said for ages, if you need to go and get an absolute world-class centre forward and he's 27, fine. You're going to get 3 years out of him. He's probably going to win you the league title 2 out of 3 seasons. That for me is absolutely fine. But it's just a lack of direction. Yeah. And I would love to know. It's not something I've been able to ask anyone sort of linked with the club, but why Chelsea's transfer strategy did change so drastically.
Yeah, it's abrupt. It just came from nowhere. Again, that fantastic point you were making. There's one person really that was linked behind everything good we were building, and he's left the club now, and that's Emanalo. And again, what? Sometimes, of course, I love Eunice's content. I love 100% Chelsea's, but sometimes I feel like, I would like to say maybe Eunice come out and be like, maybe I did get it a bit wrong in regards to Emanalo. You know what I mean? Because it's not the end of the world. I couldn't even blame anyone really, because it's not as if it was made very clear what his role was in the team. You know what I mean? One day fans just, heard of that. The first time they saw Emanalo was that statement he made in the press. You know what I mean? That interview. That's the first anyone had ever heard of him. Of course, Mourinho is going to use him as a scapegoat to try and,
Mourinho is the absolute king of just. He's like the Floyd Mayweather, Conor McGregor, Muhammad Ali rolled into one. He just keep them talk, and I think that's partly why I think Conte's fallen to pieces. Is you don't go to war with Mourinho in the press. You just don't do it, because Mourinho will tie you in knots.
Exactly.
Slightly bad news.
I did feel like he did kind of shut Mourinho up a tiny bit.
Yeah,
you know what I mean, I was kind of disappointed with his reaction. Like, what? You just took the L.
I'm seeing on just seeing the tweet come through on Twitter. I don't know if Sport are reliable, but they're saying that Luis Enrique's agreed to take over on a 2-year deal.
I wouldn't be surprised, to be honest. I mean, to be honest, it does make sense because Chelsea had to conduct their business early for managers.
Yeah,
I wouldn't be surprised. I don't know. Sometimes I look back. I'll be honest. Even when I knew Conte was going to be the appointment, I knew exactly how everything was going to turn out. I knew what it was going to be. Sometimes with us fans, you know what? It looks like a new manager is going to come. We've got a lot of time. Just watch a few videos, watch some clips of games they've managed to get an understanding of them. You can make your own opinions and, to really look at it. Don't just look at their record or whatever. For some reason in football, whenever a club's linked with someone, they're like the second coming of Jesus every single time. You know what I mean? Regardless of what they've done, who they are, you know what I mean? So I think people are starting to even rationalize why Carroll could be good for the club. I couldn't believe it. I honestly couldn't believe it. But that seems to happen. Yeah, I know. But it is just frustrating because it really links up with the earlier point I was making, you guys, in regards to it's time now to focus on developing the top talent we have. Because again, if we had developed remember that season when we had your Oscars and everyone?
Yep.
That was when Benitez had to take over. Yeah, it wasn't the most successful season, but there were a lot of dramatic moments. We still won a trophy in the end. And you could see that we were slowly progressing to become something, If there was patience where it's like, we'll stick with this squad for the next 2 years because by then there'll be much better players. Hopefully by the time they develop more, we can bring in a top manager that's really going to take them to that next level.
Yeah.
That should have been the plan. And we made the mistake. Lukaku, De Bruyne, Salah. I mean, Salah's goal-scoring form, Jesus Christ. I mean, I knew he was going to be very good for Liverpool. I wasn't expecting how easy it was going to be for him, And this is... Been screaming out for a guy like this for years, someone on the right.
Yeah, I mean, Salah's the only player I think that I've completely got wrong when he was at Chelsea. Completely got wrong. I remember there's a clip that always comes up whenever he scores a goal, which is, I think we were playing Shrewsbury, and he cuts in on his left foot, and he slices the ball probably almost like 10 yards down to give away a throw. I've never seen anyone make that. And in my head, he's still this player. Like I refuse to admit that he's going to bang like 40 goals this season. Like in my head, Salah is still that player who can't control a football, who can't dribble, can't score. But yeah, he's gone away and he's turned himself into some player. You have to give him credit. Whether he had that at Chelsea, I don't know. But when he went to Italy, he absolutely has reinvented himself. Everything that was poor, you could argue about him is exceptional. But his finishing is ridiculous. I mean, he's just the goal he scored the other day. He just literally walked up to the goal and passed it in the corner. It was like it was a training session.
Yeah,
it was ridiculous.
It was just too easy. And again, I mean, honestly, I've seen Salah before when he was playing for Basel in Europe. I mean, that's the only time I ever saw them play. And I was like, he had standout games against Liverpool and us as well. Yeah. But even then, I'd seen him before we actually played him. And I was like, this guy is fantastic. I mean, when we signed him for 12 million, I was like, wow, we've signed some player on our hands. But, Mourinho, Salah's an inside forward. I saw this from time ago, and this is why De Bruyne, I mean, Mourinho was even using De Bruyne out wide, for God's sake.
Right wing.
Exactly. And playing as a winger for Mourinho is really playing as a right back, really. You're not really playing as a winger anyway, because when you collect the ball out wide, you're isolated, you've got no one to play with. Salah's a guy, he's an inside forward, final third every time, runs and behind. That's it. That's why when he went to Roma, immediately he was getting double digits, and increasing his goal scoring abilities every time. At Liverpool, playing under Klopp with that pace that they have up, with your Mane's, Firmino's. I mean, it's literally a godsend, really. I mean, they're going to add Cahill to that. I mean, I mean, it's frustrating because we had. And this is why I'm so happy Emanalo actually left, because he was like, you know what, fuck this, come on, this is fuck this is taking the piss. I gave you everything you needed. Do you know anything maybe behind the scenes? I mean, of course, when I did the video, I was told things like obviously he was getting undermined because, for example, Conte, I think Chalobah was the most infamous example. That was really the powder cake moment where you know, he went directly to the player without even liaising with Emanalo, saying that you should go on loan. Then he went directly to Marina afterwards to tell her that I don't want him to go on loan, and she's like, yeah, okay. Didn't liaise with Emanalo. A pretty disrespectful move, and disrespectful to Chaloba as well. And you know, I think that was a moment where Emanalo was like, I can't really work with this club anymore. And already, you know, he's gone to Monaco. They signed that Pellegrini guy. I don't know anything about him. I think it's a risk, if I'm being honest. But I mean, Monaco, if they're spending that, you know, money that big, that means they're going to be using the guy. They're not going to be playing him in the in their first, you know, in their youth team. You know what I mean? And Emanalo already sounding very positive in terms of what he wanted. And even looking at his old statements, you know, this guy, his future vision, when he was talking about the players they had, where in the next few years your Hazards and your Salahs and whatever are going to be this good, and then behind them your Bakers and Bogers, they're going to be coming up to, and they'll be 22 years old, and they're going to be, you know, playing in the squad and challenging for those places. You know, we set the future that we needed. And I don't know, this is where I mean, you know, I'm looking forward to this article you're going to be releasing in regards to, you know, we need this kind of like buying a Munichification.
Yeah,
I butchered the fuck out of that. But we need people with footballing experience at the top. I mean, I really, it was one of the most shameful decisions this club have ever done. The way that they just completely undermined Emanalo. I just don't understand.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think the two choices Chelsea have really, and I mean, I'm very much in favour of having a sporting director of football model.
Yeah.
You know, people who still think that the manager should be in charge. I mean, just consider this for a moment. I mean, if you're managing a Premier League team or coaching a Premier League team, do you really have the time to scout? And scouting isn't looking on YouTube and catching a game. It's you are watching hours of footage. You're going through data. You're looking at analytics. You're looking at every single possible avenue that can give you a 1% advantage in finding that rare special player, or figuring out whether this player that we love in France, can they cut it in the Premier League? It's an art. You know, it's why top scouts get paid tons of money. It's why, you know, people who are very like this Campos guy from Monaco. Yeah. It's why he, you know, if Chelsea were to approach him in the summer, for example, he's going to cost a fortune. You know, this is a guy who found Mbappe, who found Bakayoko, who found all of the young talent that Monaco have now got. This guy put together in about 2 years. I mean, he has got a track record.
Let me just add to that quickly. Sorry to interrupt, but yeah, you're actually right, because you know, I've been told too, the reason why negotiations have slowed down a lot is because, one, he's going to cost a lot of money, and two, I think he's got this like data analytics system that he's like got a copyright for that no one else has, so that's going to cost a lot of money to license that, because he's only going to license it with the club. They wouldn't actually own that, and this is why negotiations have.
No, I was just going to say, he on that point there, he told I can't remember who he did this really fantastic interview on Eurosport, and he basically said, you know, give me a room with a computer and I'll bring my 6 guys with me, and I'll find like the next like Pele, or I'll find the next Messi. Like that's how confident he is in the system that you're talking about. So, you know, he's going to cost. You know, part of me, I would love to see, even if it's more of a figurehead and this guy comes in as like the super scout, you know, someone, I always mention Michael Ballack. Looking back at his career, and I've been looking back at interviews he's done in like 2008 and stuff like that. And the way he talks about football, being aggressive, being on the front foot, we don't want to copy teams. We want to have our own style. We want to attack teams. I mean, he uses the word aggressive, and by aggressive, he means
take the front foot.
Exactly. Front foot, attacking, you know, bit powerful. And for me personally, I mean, if you're looking at someone to kind of bring it all together and have an opinion, I mean, he can go to Abramovich and say, okay, X, Y, Z, because he's got kind of that respect of the owner. Should have the respect of the directors. He's of this kind of level of player as well, where okay, he doesn't come with his own scouting now, but it's Michael Ballack. You know, it's not like it's I don't know, some random, I don't know, Albert Ferrer or some absolute random guy from the 90s. But you know, I think there's a lot of benefit, and I think he understands the club. You know, he understands what it takes to be a Premier League footballer, which I think, again, some of our transfers, I don't necessarily think that we think some of them through. You know, can this player, will they cope in the Premier League? And Ballack is an example of someone who said that he found it difficult to adjust when he first came over, but once he found his feet, he was fantastic. You know,
Exactly.
this is a guy who likes powerful technical midfielders, loves quick, skillful forwards, loves basically pretty much everything that you would want in a Premier League team. I think that's Michael Ballack's dream football kind of setup. You know, and looking at sort of young players, very, very complimentary of Chelsea's academy players whenever I've seen him discussing them. And I think he would be, he would be a real reference point for the academy because, I mean, this is, again, a guy who's come through at a top academy, obviously a world-class player for Chelsea and for Germany. And I think the key thing for me, and a lot of people are saying, for example, get Frank Lampard in and stuff like that. I don't think you can have what I call like a god level player. You can't have a god level player doing it, particularly I think because Lampard is very keen on becoming a manager. Exactly. Having him there just hovering, that is pressure. It's Lampard is one of the untouchables at the club. He's going to be an untouchable forever. And if he was to, a little bit of pressure on the new manager, and you've got Frank Lampard now, what he's done all his coaching badges, and he's, sort of sniffing on the door. So I don't think that would work. And the same with Didier Drogba. I think Drogba, it's just too much like an emotional connection with him. So level below that, I think Ballack is kind of the key person. Just comes across really, really smart the way he analyses football. And I think again, the job that you would want him to do, I don't think people are saying he doesn't have experience. I mean, is he not something that you can learn within 6 months? It's not like it's a master's theory in football. The guy has been an elite level footballer for his entire career.
Exactly. You made that point about Philip Lahm. I mean, he's retired now.
Yeah,
he's got a position ready made for him.
Yeah,
for Nedved at Juventus as well.
Yeah,
I mean, when you're part of the football scene, you understand how things work. You speak to agents. The important figures behind the scenes. It's not as if they don't know what to do. It's not as if you need to take a qualification to get that job. It doesn't work like that. So that would work completely. In regards to Drogba, I was told that if he was ever to come, he'd be obviously kind of like a marketing ploy in a way, in terms of like, remember that remember when Dortmund became what they are now, and it was that that famous 442 article where it was like they really I mean, it was a fantastic interview with those owners, and they were saying that they needed to really sell Dortmund as a club to the fans again.
Well, that's what 12th man concept came from.
Exactly. The 12th man, exactly, that's where it came from. And this is why they're seen as a popular place for they were Germany. They wanted to be Germany. They wanted the German fans. My God, why am I fucking up this sentence? They wanted Dortmund to be everyone's second favorite club, basically. And they achieved that. And I think with Drogba, I'm thinking maybe Chelsea are hoping to do something like that in a way, in terms of him being the face of things, like an ambassador in a way, and in regards to maybe liaising with players and stuff like that. That could be interesting. And maybe if that was the case, I'm hoping there's a future where we see all of these guys having some type of important roles behind the scenes at the club. I think Ballack, Drogba, because they're already friends too already, aren't they? So it would just make a lot of sense to obviously keep that continuity. And I think that'd be amazing. It's like seeing that the history, former players taking over and spearheading the club's future. I think that'd be a very interesting dynamic. And I'd love to. Bayern Munich have done it to great success. They've been one of the dynasty clubs. I like to use the word dynasty for clubs like your Bayerns and your Reds and your Barca's, and really that's the level that you should be achieving. I think Man City will achieve that because they've been very smart since they've obviously got the new owners coming in. They're doing everything the right way, and they're going to be one of those dynasty clubs where in 10 years' time, I mean, some talented 10-year-old South American kids going to be looking at City, looking at Gabriel Jesus. They'll be like, I want to be playing for them when I'm older. When he's 20 years old in the next 10 years, Man City will be one of the top clubs he aspires to play for. They're always going to have that negotiation pool and power when it comes to bringing these guys in.
Fantastic example, because you look at Tixi. I can never say the guy's selling Bergerson or whatever the guy's name is. This is a guy. I think people just assume that he's a director. I mean, he won 8 major trophies at Barcelona. I mean, he was a top player, like a Ballack. He wasn't the superstar, but I mean, I think he's won something like 4 or 5 league titles. He's won cups. He's won, he's won the Cup Winners' Cup and stuff like that. So and he understands obviously Guardiola's philosophy and way that he thinks implicitly, because they have that kind of almost like an embryotic relationship. It's just a kind of a given thing, and I would love Chelsea to develop that. I mean, I think it really, really does work. Again, this is a guy who as far as I'm aware, doesn't have a degree in I'm a director of football, whatever the necessary qualifications are.
Lawyer, I think
he just kind of learned on the job. But I personally, I mean, the more I think about it, I would love to see. I mean, don't get me wrong. I'd like us maybe to go out and get a really sort of top superstar qualified director of football, someone who's seen it, done it, someone who's built a club. I think we do need a bit of rebuilding, which is kind of what I'd like to see them do. But equally, the sort of the homegrown stuff with Ballack, I think he'd be pretty useful. Again, if you're looking at someone who's qualified to make an opinion on whether he thinks someone should be able to play at Chelsea, the standard required. He's been in one of the Chelsea teams that's had probably one of the best standards in history. It's the over 100 goal a season, beating teams 8-0 every other week. That's Ballack's kind of team. So, if he can't see a scout presenting him a report, some video work from whatever, and determining that person is a good player, then I think we're all in trouble. So yeah, I mean, I'd love to see him. I'd love to see this Campos guy. I think he's also a great pick. But I mean, the sooner we get someone in who's got that kind of football knowledge, and the sooner they start having input on the club, I think that's going to be the best for everyone.
Exactly.
I mean, the bottom line is, Nini, we can't keep doing this short-term stuff because we don't have that golden generation of players anymore. And I think now you see this season, maybe the season, the Mourinho season as well, where we finished 10th. You don't have the JTs, the Jogbas, the Ballacks, the SCNs, the Ashley Coles. I mean, you go through that list of players. It's an absolutely incredible list of very high character players who, they wouldn't let each other drop the standards. That was what sort of categorised that Chelsea team. We don't quite have that at the moment. I'd like to think maybe one day we do, but until that point comes in, I think you need someone who, at least from a strategic level, could say, okay, next 5 years, this is the plan, because we can't keep doing this kind of short term, jumping from one different style of manager to the next, different players, different squads, different style. It's just not going to work. City are a very good example of that they look the most stable and steady club in England. They're absolutely walking the league. They're going to go and buy a load of ton of talent in the future as well. Yeah. They've got a fantastic academy as well. I know they got knocked out of the Youth Cup early this season, but they've got some really good players coming through.
Yeah, they're saying that they've got the under 14s of their generation that they got big hopes for.
Yes. Yeah. One of their age groups is meant to be obscenely talented.
Incredible. So that's how it starts, and then that's how you, because again, their academy isn't there on our level anyway.
No, not yet. No.
Exactly.
I think
it's more like a Josh McEachran, really.
That was the last season's final. I think City, that was at least their benchmark of where they were, and then we absolutely just ruined them at Stamford Bridge. With a very young team, it must be said. It was, I think Hudson-Odoi played at 16. You had, obviously Dujon and other people playing. So we weren't a particularly old team, but I mean, we are the benchmark for academy football, and I'd like to maybe see us return to being the benchmark for first team as well at some point.
Exactly. But I think that's probably the best closing point to make, really. Yeah. But just one quick thing, are you Conte in or Conte out? I'm not hugely popular. I'm not hugely up for him being sacked right now. But I don't see him being the manager that I'd like to have at Chelsea in the future. I'm a bit old school in some respects, that I do look at last season. I'm very thankful for what he managed to achieve, and I do feel a little bit sorry for him at times, but the other part of me just wants him to snap out of it and just get a little bit more energy back into the team. Yeah. But it looks like I don't know if this Enrique stuff is true, but he may potentially get time to turn it around. He might not, but I don't think he can have any complaints if he walks now or if he walks at the end of the season. But not Conte or Conte out, more Conte disappointed. Or discontent, someone said the other day. Yeah. Again, I'm not even going to say I'm hoping for him to be sacked, because he won't be sacked, but he will be leaving. And for that reason, I am Conte out, because again, for the direction of this club, again, with Conte, it's not even a personal thing. I think with Conte, for me, it's more the fact that he symbolizes everything that I'm sick and tired of with the club and what I want us to move away from. It's not his fault personally. It's just that he's like the epitome of all of the bad things we've done since Roman's taken over. And it's like, we need to just kill it off, take that weed out, throw it away, and just really start, focusing on getting that garden back to, my analogies are awful. I can't do them. I really can't. But yeah, you guys, thank you for watching the live stream. gonna have a video out tomorrow. I'm probably gonna do a Q&A live stream on Friday if you guys want to come in. Of course, if you want your questions answered, super chats for that. Hope you guys enjoy the stream. Obviously, a long one, but you guys like it. You like it long. You like it long. But anyway, thank you for watching, Joe. If you want to, any closing words, you want to say bye or anything?
Yeah, no, it's been fun as always. The only thing I would say is that hopefully, if I get the chance to finish it off, I should have a smallish article out on potential Chelsea or ex-Chelsea players to consider for the director of football or sporting director role, and just taking a little bit of a look into what I would hope the job would entail, and just picking up a few people. Interestingly, I've had a look at Ruud Gullit potentially, but yeah, there's a few other names in there as well. Which
that should be interesting. Of course, you guys in the community tab, I will be posting a link there, so you will get an alert when the article comes out, so you won't miss out on that. But anyway, you guys, thank you for watching today's live stream. I'm Nini FC. This is Blue Lines TV. Signing out.